So you've spent thousands on specialists. You've eliminated every single trigger food. You've tried every supplement that the functional medicine doctor or the functional nutrition provider recommended. You've done all the therapies, ABA and PT and speech and OT and all of the things that you can think about, right? And for a few weeks, things started to get better. There was real improvement, and you finally feel hopeful, right? This is working, and then everything plateaus. The progress stops, or worse, you start to see some regressions with symptoms returning and the struggles resuming, right? You're back where you started. You're defeated and wondering, what the heck are we doing wrong? But here's what I need you to hear. You're not doing anything wrong, and you're not failing, and your child is not broken. You are not broken. The problem is that everything that you've tried focuses in on regulation when we need repair first. So, two completely different approaches to nervous system health and healing, right? For nervous system regulation, these are the practices that help an already intact nervous system shift into calmer states. There's breathing exercises, there's yoga, meditation, and cold plunging, and supplements, or vagal toning, or play therapy, or couples therapy, for instance, if we're talking about adults, right? There's evidence based tools that engage the parasympathetic rest and digest. So think about it like a dimmer switch in the home, right? When the electrical system already works, you turn it on, you turn it off, right? But when we're talking about nervous system repair, this is where we're addressing the actual dysfunction within the nervous system itself, right? Fixing the stress, the tension, the neurological interference, or what we call subluxation from trauma, from birth, from chronic stress. Stuck patterns that are locked in to the brainstem, to the neurospinal system, to the vagus nerve. And when stress and subluxation persists, there's no amount of yoga or breathing or supplements or therapies that are going to be able to unlock that deepest layer of dysfunction. So think about it. Repair is fixing faulty wiring within the electrical system. Because when wiring is damaged, it doesn't matter how many times you flip that light switch, the lights are going to flicker until you fix the actual problem. But the key here is that repair is fixing the engine. Regulation is learning to drive it smoothly, because you can take all the driving lessons in the world, but if your car won't turn over and the engine's broken, you ain't going anywhere. So, nervous system repair must come first for chronic health challenges because it addresses the foundational dysfunction preventing regulation tools from working. Now, you may have heard of this book. There's a dude named Bessel van der Volk, the landmark research that he provided surrounding trauma, right? Physical, emotional, toxic. It's not just processed mentally and filed away, it's stored somatically. It lives in the actual tissues, the structures, and in the nervous system, far below conscious awareness. And when your body encounters overwhelming stress or trauma, it's going to go into protection mode, right? And this is a brilliant survival mechanism, but that protective state becomes locked in, creating dysfunction that persists long after the threat is gone. So you can't talk your way out of trauma stored within the neurospinal system or the brainstem or the vagus nerve. You can't breathe away stress and subluxation that's been locked in since birth trauma or childhood stress. But fundamental neuroscience principles tell us that we cannot be in growth and protection at the same time. So when the nervous system is stuck in our sympathetic, gas pedal dominant, protective survival mode state, all the meditation and all the supplements and all the therapies aren't going to create lasting change. But the foundation, that neurological wiring, is still in lockdown mode, right? And then the body keeps the score. What he talks about is you need to adjust it out and not just talk it out or breathe it out. The combination of factors creating profound nervous system dysfunction oftentimes starts with prenatal stress and fertility challenges, right? The maternal stress load, the anxiety, the medications during pregnancy, stress hormones impacting the developing baby, because nervous system development actually begins in utero. And then we start talking about what compounds it, right? Birth interventions and trauma, C-section rates at 1 in 3 births, far exceeding the WHO recommendations. And then you add forceps or vacuums or inductions because there's 50 to 70 pounds of pressure on a baby's delicate head, neck, and brainstem in a natural, normal delivery. But we add interventions and that significantly increases. But the challenge is it what creates stress and subluxation or that neurological interference that's disrupting brain and body communication. And then there's the early childhood stressors, the colic, the constipation, the reflux. Those aren't just normal struggles, they're early warning signs of nervous system dysfunction that then lead to ear infections and antibiotic overuse, and then a disrupted gut microbiome, and then a compromised immune system, deepening the dysfunction, deepening the stress onto the body. And then the compounding effects, right, of developmental delays, or like difficulty with tummy time, skipping crawling, late walking, speech delays, all signs that the nervous system isn't developing or functioning properly. The level of stress and trauma that most children go through and adults have accumulated over their lifetimes is what locks the neurospinal system into such deeply stressed and subluxated states that these surface level interventions simply cannot touch it. And it's not that the other approaches are wrong. I cold plunge all the time. I have a bunch of supplements that I take, but the dysfunction is too severe and too deeply rooted for that to just address it alone. Maybe you're that parent who's eliminated every single trigger food, or you spent thousands on supplements and enzymes and probiotics. You do family yoga, meditation apps for kids, right? You have the perfect bedtime routine, but your child still has daily meltdowns, or they can't focus at school, or they won't sleep through the night, or the tummy troubles that just don't end. Or maybe you're the adult that's invested in breathwork courses or therapies for years or plant retreats and all of that kind of stuff, or cold plunges and red lights and gut healing protocols or hormone testing 6 different ways, the temporary investments, and you may feel better for weeks, and then everything resets, right? The anxiety starts to return, the digestive system flares up, the fatigue's coming back on, not because you're doing something wrong and not because you're not trying hard enough, but when the nervous system is stuck in sympathetic dominance, that gas pedal stuck on mode, when subluxation creates that constant interference and miscommunication, or when the vagus nerve is dysfunctional from that trauma, physically and chemically, those regulation tools are like trying to change the thermostat when the furnace is broken. But there are clinical signs that you need repair before regulation starts working, like when the therapies don't stick, or they don't provide the lasting results, or like when the gut protocols work temporarily, but then they plateau, or constant relapses after those improvement periods. Maybe there's some high reactivities to small triggers. Maybe you use like the Whoop or the Aura Ring or something like that, and your heart rate variability is so dang low that you can't recover from daily function. Maybe you're quickly resetting to stress states after calming activities. Now, only finding temporary surface level relief from all of those things. But the thing here is that nervous system repair opens the door for those regulation tools to finally work. We see it with our kids where they start getting adjusted, they start getting chiropractic care, and then PTOT speech starts actually working. Once the system is in a ready state, there's foundational wiring that gets fixed. The stress on the body and subluxation starts getting released and corrected, and our vagus nerve starts functioning. And then everything starts changing, right? The breath work actually becomes more effective because the vagus nerve responds to it. The supplements absorb and assimilate better because the digestive system starts functioning properly. The dietary changes like gluten free, dairy free, joy free, soy free, whatever, have a greater impact because the gut brain connection is actually working. Therapy starts to create deeper change because the nervous system has the capacity to process and integrate. Your body's innate healing capacity, which has been suppressed by chronic stress and subluxation, can finally activate. Because parents tell us all the time, we've done speech therapy for 2 years with minimal progress, but 4 to 6 months into care, and my child's speech has now exploded. We've tried to balance our hormones for 5 years, and nothing's worked. But 3 months of care, my body's finally responding to it. Or my child's been in OT for sensory issues for years, but after chiropractic, the OT said there's more progress in 2 months than the previous 2 years combined. I'm not saying that these therapies aren't invaluable because they are absolutely amazing. but the nervous system needed repair first so that they could work. Now, stress and subluxation in clear terms, we're not talking about bones out of place, right? Or things out of alignment. The neurological dysfunction actually has three components to it. There's altered sensory input. So the information that your brain receives from the body, from the outside world, is distorted. There's the neurological interference, meaning the brain and body communication is blocked. And then there's disrupted coordination, where all the body systems start to become compromised because it's working so much harder than it has to. And this is what creates dysautonomia, or the stuck on sympathetic gas pedal mode on the body, where the parasympathetic mode then gets suppressed, right? Because we can't be in growth and protection at the same time. But neurologically focused chiropractic care and the adjustments that we provide restore that sensory motor input to the brain. It starts to balance that sympathetic gas and the parasympathetic brake pedal branches, and it reactivates the vagus nerve function, which controls our digestion, our heart rate, our inflammation, our immune response, our emotional regulation. We start to increase the nervous system's overall ability to adapt. But what we do first is we use the insight scans to objectively measure this dysfunction, to identify the patterns of stress onto the body, and to track progress throughout care. Now, these are measurable and objective assessments of how your nervous system actually functions. But the challenging part is requiring patience and trust, because true nervous system repair takes time. For some, it's months. For some of my complex cases, it could take years for that complete foundational healing to actually take place. And I know that's not what you want to hear, because you want to feel better now or yesterday, but let me help you understand why this makes sense. When we look at the perfect storm, the prenatal stress, the birth trauma, the early illnesses, the antibiotic overload or medication exposures, the toxic environmental stuff, the developmental disruptions, and how absolutely massively stressful life is for parents, it makes sense how deep dysfunction gets. Because the pattern's developing and deepening for years, sometimes decades. So look at it like this. Let's take a 5-year-old, for example, struggling since birth. We got to unwind 5 years of dysfunction. Or maybe we talk about a 35-year-old with anxiety since their adolescence, right? That's addressing 20 plus years of stuck patterns. It doesn't happen overnight. But, thinking about it this way, if someone has poor muscle tone or they just want to get stronger, right? They don't go to the gym once and expect results, right? If we want big biceps, we're not just going to go do some curls once a week and expect big old biceps, right? We have to understand that consistent training over months, if not years, builds that real strength or the gains or the progress that we're after. Nervous system repair works the exact same way. The body works this way, so we have to work this way. It requires repetition, it requires consistency, and time for the neurological patterns to shift and new, healthier patterns to establish. We're not just like popping things back into place. We're retraining the nervous system to be able to build new neural pathways, teach it new patterns. But let's talk about the phases of care, right? When we think about the initial restoration phase, right? Within the first couple of weeks, what we often see with these kids or we often see with parents is that sleep starts to improve. There's less pain or dysfunction, maybe improved mood. It's like the first taste of regulation. But then we start moving into correction, right? Where this is where we're actively unwinding these patterns of stress onto the body and retraining the system. And there's ups and downs as the body starts releasing and reintegrating the changes, right? But then we got to strengthen it. So there's better function that's starting to become maintained consistently. And those setbacks or those regressions, they're shorter, they're less severe. And then we're really building our resilience, right? Where the nervous system capacity is actually rebuilt. We can maintain regulation with less frequent care. But more severe initial dysfunction takes longer for true repair to happen. Now, when we think about true neurological restoration, it's not temporary system or symptom management, rather. It's actual foundational healing that's changing the developmental trajectory or changing the life trajectory. So when you repair the nervous system, you're not just addressing one system or one symptom or a diagnosis. You're restoring the foundation that's then allowing the entire body to function optimally. And with time, with consistency, with trust in the process and your body's ability to heal and adapt as it was designed to, nervous system repair creates lasting transformation. It's not a quick fix. It's definitely not a band aid solution either, because true foundational healing is what's leading to massive quality of life improvements and genuine transformation for those with chronic conditions. And in the body keeps the score, just as Vanderkolk taught us, body truly keeps the score. All of the stressors, all of the inputs, if we can't handle it, we can't adapt to it, it stores it. But through neurologically focused chiropractic care, the body can reset that scorecard. So if you've been stuck in temporary improvements followed by plateaus, it's time to address the root cause. So check the link in our bio to learn more about Haven Family Chiropractic and neurologically focused chiropractic care. You can even read our full repair before regulation article at the link within our bio. Just remember that real healing takes time, but it's worth it. There are no quick fixes, just root cause care that lasts.